In the summer of 2006, a man walked into a boxing gym in Phoenix, Arizona with a notebook and a press badge. He introduced himself as a sports writer and asked for a few minutes with the man training inside, Mike Tyson. Tyson agreed to the interview and even called him a really nice guy later. But just a few weeks later, police were at that same gym. They showed Tyson a photograph of a man and asked him whether he knew this person. Tyson said yes, the man had interviewed him and he was sorry if he had offended him. The officer responded that he liked you, Mr. Tyson. He didn't like the 28 people that he shot and the 8 that he killed. So how in the world did a serial killer end up in a room with Mike Tyson? Well, we have to take a look at what was happening in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. Beginning in August 2005, people in the city began getting shot at random. People were shot while walking or waiting at bus stops. It was complete randomness. The shooter would drive by, open fire, and leave. There was no pattern that connected the victims. This randomness terrified people. Different neighborhoods, different ages, and could be doing completely ordinary things when attacked. The unknown shooter was referred to as the serial shooter, and for months, people did not know who was responsible and whether they would be the next victim. The man was eventually caught, and his name was Dale Hausner. Hausner was small and described by people who met him as ordinary and friendly. He worked different jobs, including as an airport janitor, while working as an amateur sports reporter and using press credentials to cover local boxing events. Behind that ordinary appearance, Hausner had already killed several people on his own before anyone else became involved. In early 2006, his brother Jeff introduced him to Samuel Dietman, a homeless and unemployed man at a bar. Their criminal activity initially was small, with the men shoplifting liquor and CDs to resell. Over time, this behavior became worse. They began setting garbage fires and shooting out car tires for entertainment. Eventually, Dietman became involved in the drive-by shootings with Hausner. The two used meth and drove around targeting random people and animals, apparently doing it for the thrill. Between May 2005 and August 2006, their spree left dozens of people wounded and 8 dead. At some point during this rampage, Hausner used his credentials to get an interview with Mike Tyson at a Phoenix gym. Hausner asked him questions about his career, his future plans, just normal sports journalism. Tyson described him later in interviews as small and nice. Hausner and Dietman were eventually caught, and a major break in the case came from one of Dietman's friends. When the two were drinking, Dietman confessed to his involvement in the shootings to a friend named Ron Horton. At first, he wasn't sure if he was telling the truth, but he eventually went to the police. Police arrested both Hausner and Dietman. Their arrests also explained something that had happened at Tyson's gym just a few weeks earlier. After his arrest, Dietman cooperated with prosecutors and became a witness against Hausner. He avoided the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison. Hausner, however, did not cooperate. His case went to trial, and prosecutors presented evidence about the full extent of the shootings. In 2009, Hausner was convicted of multiple counts of murder, along with dozens of other felony charges, around 80 in total. He was sentenced to death. In 2013, while on death row in Arizona, Hausner took his own life. This story just highlights how real danger can appear completely ordinary. Hausner had a job, a press badge, and he came across as friendly enough to Tyson. There was nothing about him that suggested he was capable of what he was doing. Hausner was going around shooting people at random, and during that same period, he was able to walk into a gym and interview one of the most famous athletes in the world without anybody knowing who he truly was.